Welcome to Inspiring Life Journeys, where we meet with everyday people of all walks of life, learning about their journey through life, what's brought them, what has inspired them to where they are today, and what inspiration can they be to us, and what can they teach us in these few minutes that we have together. So I'm Shantha, your host for the Inspiring Life Journeys. And just before we start, just a little introduction to our show. Here we go. Today we have a special guest, Patti Smith, and I'm going to bring Patti on and just going to tell you a little bit about her and what she's going to bring to us today. Hi, Patti. Welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here, Shantha.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to join us. I know we've known each other for quite a few years, and I believe that your journey has been such an inspiration from the first time I met you to where you are today. You've had so many experiences and life experiences that have shaped and molded you to the person that you are today.
Thank you.
So we look forward to sharing the few next half an hour or so with you. But before we go, I'm just going to give everybody a short, brief introduction as to who you are and what you do. So, Patti Smith is an author, speaker, and entrepreneur and certified life success coach who fiercely believes in the power of human potential. Before entering the personal growth area, Patti had successful careers, holding executive positions in the fashion industry and the healthcare field. The deep personal impact of losing her sister recently to cancer inspired Patti to follow her passions of helping people bust through your own glass ceiling of playing small so you can ignite and elevate your impact as you learn to live and do business with vision driven lens of awesomeness. That's great, Patti. I know lives brings you through certain curveballs, and we all learn from that. But I'm sure there have been lessons from it right from the time you were growing up. So, would you like to share a little bit about what your childhood was like? In your younger years, maybe in elementary, middle school, what it was like.
Sure. Yes, well, first of all, hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with Shantha and everybody that's listening. Yeah, when I grew up, we're in California, but I grew up in Michigan and in a big family. There were 6 kids. We were like the Brady Bunch, 3 boys, 3 girls, and I was in the middle. I was Jan. I was always the fixer in the family, the pleaser, the wanting to smooth everything over with everybody. I was that typical middle person. And what's interesting is you kind of reflect back on life. I realized there was a piece of me that really kind of started then. I always loved helping people. And my family used to call me Florence Nightingale because when the phone would ring and it was a friend, they would call me with their problems, and then I would literally be out the door trying to help. And so they would say, Florence is on her way again. And it's just, they teased me. I had brothers that teased me a lot. And I remember I would just adamantly, when they would tease me about that, I would say, you know what? People are the very most important things in life. And I felt, as a young little girl, I remember feeling so grounded in that truth. Like it didn't matter that they were teasing me. I said, people are the most important things in the world. And so I felt, I didn't understand what it was at the time, but I realized that was a strong why for me, was helping people.
Gosh, right from that young age, right? To where you are today, you're helping people in your business today and day to day. I remember seeing the picture recently of your sibling. I think it was yesterday. It was National Siblings Day.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
it was quite a picture from the 70s.
Yeah, no, that was cute. That was cute. And I saw that you were a family of 6. I'm from a family of 6, but I'm the youngest, so I wasn't, in the middle child who had to take care of younger ones as well as, play nice with the older ones, right? I'm sure you
But
had
there's
those.
something about growing up in a big family that,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot going on and you're always trying to find your place, you know?
Right, right. Yeah. And it's a blessing. It's a true joy. At times, I'm sure when you're growing up, you're like, oh my gosh, all we have to put up with all of these folks. And now,
It's true.
yeah, it's a joy though to have so many in the family. So that's great. So that was in your younger years. And then what
Yes.
led you to your careers? That I know you had a couple of really successful careers. So what led you from your school to college to what careers did you have before this?
Yeah, there were two things that really grounded me when I was young, and one was people, helping people, and the other was, fashion.
Mm,
And
hmm.
fashion. In fact, when I was a young girl, um, I would argue with my mom what pajamas I was gonna wear to bed. And, so she used to call me fashion plate. So those were my 2, and it's interesting because I really leaned into the fashion piece. I
Mm,
didn't know what I wanted to do in when I was in high school, but, my mom and my older sister were really like my first mentors, and I would ask them everything, and they really kinda helped me develop. They got me to, lean into making my own decisions for myself, but that's the first career path that really lit me up was
mhm,
fashion, and so, that was my first career. I lived in Michigan, and I ended up it's a bit of a story, but, the end of the day, I ended up having my dream job, and eventually it got me out to California, and I was living partway in New York and partway in California. And literally, it was my dream job. So I was in the fashion business for quite a while. I loved it, and then I ended up, eventually settling down. I got married. We had a daughter, and I have an older sister that ended up getting cancer, and
mm,
she fought the cancer, for a few years. She was 41 when she first, found out she had it. It was caught early. Anyway, it ended up becoming terminal, and, I ended up having to stop working, and my husband and I took her in and with her last, 8 months of life, and that whole process really changed me. I mean, just being in that whole world of caregiving, um,
yeah.
just patient advocacy, taking care of things, and it's just such a journey to navigate in and of itself on top of the emotions when it's, somebody close to you. And after that whole experience and my sister passed, literally something shifted in me.
Mhm,
And I'm gonna get emotional here. It was amazing the shift because suddenly everything that I was doing leading up to that in terms of my passion and the career really shifted to wanting to help people in a different way. And so I thought it was healthcare. So that's what I jumped into. I mean, to go from the fashion industry and the luxury market, it kind of morphed into, but it was all still in that industry. I
mhm,
suddenly just made this huge shift, and I didn't know what I was doing, and but I really felt called, and so I ended up forging into healthcare, and I got into an entrepreneurial company, and they created a position for me. I loved it. I was VP of Relational Partnerships, which I loved because I was talking to people, and I loved the work that this company was doing. And anyway, I did it for 4.5 years, and I they even made me president, which I just took as a temporary position until they found somebody. But it really pushed me to my green growing edge, and I loved being in that field. And then I eventually had to shut down a company I didn't start. I won't get into all the reasons, but it was a
mhm,
heck of a experience, and it really tested my entrepreneurial and just going for something that is so outside of your comfort zone. And it challenged me for a little while because I just thought, you know what? I kind of got in that mode. I'm just going to settle and just do something safe. And then my sister passed away when I was 50. So 4.5 years later, when I turned 50, and this is kind of what led me up to the thing I'm doing now, I woke up and I said, you know what? This is all Marie got, 50 years. And I was
Mm.
50. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm settling. And then I thought about my daughter who was, she was in middle school. And I thought, what kind of a role model am I being for her? I know I'm more than this. And so that really was the kick in the butt for me to say, okay, so what's next for me? And I ended up getting a friend of mine was a coach, and she's like, you know, I would love some help with marketing. And I know that you do, you know, you've done marketing in the past. So I slowly tipped my toe in. And then I just loved it. I've always loved personal development. I've always read personal development, and I just never thought of it as a career. And my friend told me you should be a life coach. You'd be great. And I thought, oh, I just shut down a company I didn't start. The last thing I want to
Mhm.
do is coach. And I realized I think I was just at the edge of needing my own personal growth. I needed to
Yeah.
really reevaluate and really think about what's pulling me. And once I kind of released all the things that just didn't work and really leaned into what was giving me life, I knew that this was my path, was to be a life
Mm.
coach. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm doing today. And little did I know that on my journey, I'd be authoring a book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, but going back, I think your experiences from the time you were little, when you were being like you were called the Florence, and then that has led you and brought you to a next level in your career where you got all the business skills. So and then of course you really I think what I picked up from you is that you had to give up things that were not serving you right to make room for what's really open and what's in your possibilities. So do you have any anecdotes or stories from your previous careers that really helped you shape you and mold you, say from your fashion industry or from the healthcare, that listeners may find it beneficial?
Oh, sure, sure. I feel like, first of all, just our answers to really having a fulfilling, very purposeful and meaningful life, I believe, those answers aren't outside of ourselves, they're inside. And so to really, I don't think people take the time, especially nowadays with social media, we're always looking at things and, checking, our status of things. And yet everything comes from in here. Your
Mm.
soul, your spirit, what gives you life, what gets you excited to get up in the morning is here. And to take the time to really ask the question, what would I love? And what really speaks to me? What's calling me? Um, and and not to get so caught up in how everything's going to turn out, but just to be more curious. It's interesting when I was in my fashion career, um, I remember when I was at a fashion school and I thought I wanted to be a buyer. And by the time I ended, we were almost getting ready to graduate. I realized my buying teacher said, "You don't seem that excited anymore." And I told her, I realized that this is all about numbers. And that's kind of not my thing that I'm that excited about. And what was really weird is took her asking me about it for me to go, I don't know that this is my path. And yet I wasn't worried about it. I just stayed open to, well, what could be next. And right before I graduated, an opportunity came to our school. Our director came in, and it was with Esprit. And Esprit was one of the hottest fashion companies in the 80s. And I remember they were talking about this opportunity. I didn't even hear what it was. I heard the company.
Mhm.
It lit me up, and I just literally went to the interview. And I was going to go home and change, and something told me, don't, just go. And so I went, and thank God I did, because I was the first one there. 30 girls
Mm.
showed up. I interviewed, and at the end of the interview, the woman's like, you know what, I like you, go sit in the office, you've got the job, let me just interview these other people, because I feel like for the school I'll do this. And I remember thinking, wow, that was like, I followed my intuition, and it really served me. And, but I didn't overthink it. I just
Mm.
trusted. And I think in life, and it literally set me on a whole nother trajectory. I mean, that's what got me into this career. And I found out there was a position that I never even heard of, and I loved it. And I never was one that I didn't love retail sales, but this was selling to the buyers, the opposite of what I
Mhm.
was going to do. And you got to merchandise the line and travel, and it was literally a dream job that I wasn't even aware of. I didn't know something like that existed. And so I think not to overthink things, but to really get clear about what gives you life and just to take action without having to worry about how it's all going to turn out.
Yeah, yeah. Just take one step at a time, right? And not really
Mhm.
worry. Yeah, that's so true. I think all of us, including me, sometimes want everything in line so that we can see what's happening, and we don't take action quick enough. And I think that's
Yeah,
what you did. You didn't wait till you went and got home and looked perfect to go for the
exactly.
interview,
Because
right?
the bottom line is there were 30 girls that showed up, I think. And you know, I'd like to believe, oh, I'm the perfect one for the job, but let's face it, I would have been at the back of the line. And
Hmm.
there's very, I guess the point is opportunities come and there's a small window. And so don't overthink it. If you feel, called to just go for it, I mean, do it. Don't overthink it. And that was really a lesson for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So fast forward, you started your coaching business. So you give us your name of your coaching business, and you're also a speaker and an author. We'll get into the author portion of it, but you're a speaker and you do speak in different areas. What are some of the topics that you speak on, or what are the places that you would like to speak on?
Yes, thank you. I speak to a lot of professional organizations, some, more probably women professional organizations, but I have spoken to, because I think the message kind of speaks to everybody.
Mhm.
You know, the, it, I mean, a lot of it, what's interesting, Shantha, is no matter what you're trying to do, no matter what area of your life you're wanting to improve, um, people don't want to believe this, I find, but it literally starts with mindset because
Mhm.
attitude is everything. I mean, what we think, you know, the way we know mind body connection, it's science. I mean, it's not one of these things that's like, some hocus pocus. It literally there's a mind body connection. And so I think the message really speaks to anybody that's willing to want to continue to grow and expand. And we were meant to expand and grow until we take our last breath. And so, like one of my talks is on breaking through your own glass ceiling, because at the end of the day, we get in the way of ourselves. We think it's the outside, but it isn't. It's the way you think of yourself. And a lot of that's got to do with self image. So, when you have a good attitude going into anything, into the unknown,
Mhm.
you are going to
Mhm.
do so different than if you go into it afraid or feeling very low confidence and low self esteem. It's okay to be afraid. But if you're starting to like self sabotage, I don't care what you're going to do, you're not going to get the result you want. So it's, it's a conversation that can really lean into anything, whether you're a salesperson or whether you're young and starting out in life. It's giving you tools and it's learning how to use the own tools that we've been given. We have these 6 mental faculties and nobody really teaches about them. And yet
Mhm.
there are superpowers. And when you learn how to use them in service of your goals, I mean, you can make anything happen. Um, so I speak on. I usually speak to professional organizations that want, something to motivate their groups to stretch themselves and improve.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Now, have you ever come across a situation where where you knew that something was within you and you wanted to portray it to your in your talk, and that really shone out in the way you in what you portrayed. So is there a situation that you can bring out what that really stood out, that went way beyond your expectations in your interaction with people or on your talk?
Are you saying within my one of my speaking
Yeah.
engagements?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I'm just thinking. Well, I'll say there's two different things. One was actually one of my first talks, which really wasn't even my my normal target market, but somebody that I knew had asked me to speak to this large group. It was, I think, 50 or 60 people. And, I think what surprised me about it was, even though it wasn't my target market, I was able to connect with them in a way that there was a lot of engagement after the talk. And it just felt so good to be able to serve in that way, even though it wasn't my target market, because I feel like, we all walked away and they walked away feeling better about themselves. Like I feel like more hopeful. And it was to a group of people that were employees of hers, but it just wasn't normally like my niche market. But I was surprised how I felt, because it just felt so satisfying. And, in life, I think when you connect with what you're doing and what you speak about, and you can help people in so many different ways, and maybe it's not the initial way you think, but it was my very first speaking gig, and I actually got paid for it as well. And I don't know, you don't know what you don't know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had another talk in front of a group, and it was a mortgage group. And what was interesting is, I work with a lot of people that tend to want to work on their work in the world, whether it's their business or just, their creative expression of how they like to, impact. And I was talking to this group, and they were real estate mortgage brokers. And so one of the women that ended up wanting to coach with me, what was so interesting was, even though we were working on her kind of business vocation part of her vision, what she found, and it was so cool to see, was not only did her business improve, there were some amazing things that opened up for her. But at the end, she sent me a picture that she ended up meeting a guy, and it was just kind of another part of her life. We really didn't get into that piece that much of her vision. And yet just seeing how, when you work on things in your life, how other things will bring, positive attraction. And that was kind of early in my coaching too. So I think just this idea, Shantha, of you don't know what you don't know, and not to overthink, but to just continue to take action in the direction of what is, your vision of what gives you life, rather than focusing on what you don't want. Focus on what you want and just take action in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true, right? When you're coaching in one area of your life, it's just not, you're a person. As a person, you got different areas. You got your personal, your business, and it's all linked together as to how you grow in each of those areas. And when you grow, you do well, or you coach right, or you're going in the right direction in your business. Somehow your personal life, it also manifests, and it gets so much more fulfilling.
Yeah, well, there's that saying, the way you do one thing, you do everything. And,
Yeah.
we're all energy, and everything, we all operate on frequencies, right? Everything is. And so if you think about it, it makes sense. So if you're in a low frequency in one area, it's not like you're in a bad mood and then you're in a different mood in the relationship part of your life or work. If you had a bad day at work and you come home, you usually bring it home with you, right? And then the energy with the family is kind of, so I think it's just so important to, keep yourself on a higher frequency.
Awesome. Great. So going to talk now about your book. You're a brand new author. You released your book, was it about a month ago or so? And your book is called, what is your book called? And, I'm just going to read it what it is. It says, Simple Strategies to Navigate the Unknown and Ignite What's Next in Your Life. But the title of the book I really like is, What Am I to Do Now? All of us have that, that burning question. So give me a little bit about your book and what really led you to some of the chapters or the topics that are in that book.
Yeah, thank you. Like I originally was just going to write a small little ebook. And when I talked to a book coach, and I told him, I'm speaking and I want to speak on bigger stages and I just want to get this message out. And he's like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, I'm no author. See, it's the way we look at ourselves. I'm no author. And you know what he did is he just broke it down simple for me. And he asked me to come up with 20 lessons. And the next time I talk with him, we'd chat some more. And I did. And he's like, there's the chapters of your books, Patti. And I'm like, you know what? I think I could do this. And so in the premise of my book, what am I to do now? Simple strategies, right, to navigate the unknown and ignite what's next in your life. That question of, what should I do? Really, I think people hit that wall when they are asking themselves, okay, what's next for me? And I feel like that the question of what's next, that's an ever evolving question that continues to get in front of us throughout our life, right? Through different transitions. When you're young, starting out in life, what's next? We go through losing people, through divorce, through losing a job, through even empty nesting, just so many things in life that can just change, because life is meant to change and we're meant to evolve. And so I call it your what's next evolution. And that's the thread throughout my book, is really looking at that question of what's next. And I think that a lot of people, when they're thinking about what's next, when nothing hits them, and they're like, well, what should I do? And they hit the wall, then they stop and they constrict, right? You're either expanding and growing or you're constricting. And the thing is some people are fine with fine. But if you think about it, if you are fine and you don't do anything to grow, eventually fine becomes stagnating. And when you stagnate, that's just a very, like, it's just this place where you're going, I don't even know who I am anymore. Nothing excites me. And so the whole premise of the book is to ignite that light in you, because until you take your last breath, you are meant to evolve and grow. And I have a 7-step system in there called Ignite, and then the letter U. And it really kind of breaks it down of just a process to help you go through, okay, I want to connect with what gives me life. And right now I'm having a hard time doing that. So that's the first. I broke the chapter into the book into 3 parts. The first part is building a foundation, because if you're going to build a house, you need a strong foundation. No matter how beautiful the house, or the house isn't going to stand. So it's about building a foundation. The second part of the book is the actual system, the Ignite You system. And then the third part of the book, because the minute you decide for going for something, that's when all of the paradigms and the self-doubt and the fears are going to show up. So it's about how to bust through that. And really, the end of the day, it's learning how to approach life through a vision-driven lens of your vision versus condition-driven lens, which is you wait and look around you and look at your conditions and circumstances to determine what you're going to do or what people tell you, when you should be following what's in here. And when you live that way, it's not just about, achieving things. I mean, that's nice, but it's short-lived. But it's about having purpose and meaning and really feeling fulfilled. And so that's really the premise of my book, is to help you on that journey to navigate the unknown and really ignite that light in you.
Yeah, that's so great. When you talk about it, it is really every day. I think you're right. You're kind of making decisions, and sometimes, like when you're stagnant, you kind of get stuck in that, and you need some sort of motivation and things to get out of that. And it looks like that your book is really, really igniting them to take the next step action. I can't wait to read all of it.
Thank you. And Shantha, I'm just going to tell you something really quick, because, sometimes people, when they're a little bit older on in life, they'll say, you know what, I'm fine. Everything's, I don't need to do anything. And I'm too old, or I'm just slowing down. And I always bring up my dad, because my dad lost my mom at 87. And my mom was the one who was the social calendar person. She did everything. And we really thought my dad was going to die of a broken heart when my mom passed. 3 weeks after she passed, my niece was tragically killed. And I remember my dad saying, I haven't even processed your mother. And we just thought, there's no way my dad's going to make it through this. 3 months later, he calls me and says, you know what, Patti? I made a decision. I could either look at 4 walls and wait to die, or I can reinvent myself. and I've decided to reinvent myself. He's now 93 and a half years old. He lives on his own. He taught himself how to cook. He is constantly, looking for a way to evolve in his own way. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's a decision. It's a
Yeah.
decision, I think.
Yeah, what a great role model you have in your dad. And, to take that, it's so easy to get to just self, to lay in that mode of, when you've lost somebody, and it's so tragic there, and people do take their time. But each one's got their own journey, and I'm so glad that your dad took to reinvent himself. And I know you've been talking about him of how he loves to cook, and all he likes to
My
do those
mother
things.
wouldn't believe it because he didn't cook when she was alive. So, but
Yeah,
it's
but
just
that's
it's
a
just
great role
reconnecting
model.
with new things and getting. I think the whole thing is a staying curious,
Mm,
coming from
mhm.
a what if attitude. Like when you were a
Yeah.
child.
Hmm. Yeah. And speaking of role models, you're such a great role model to your daughter. I know you talked about a time in your life when you thought about being a role model, and what would you like to portray to her. But even I remember you telling me, even in the process of writing your book, that was one of your motivation to see what role model are you to your daughter in the way you live your life. So yeah, so that's awesome that you do that. So,
Yeah,
anything else that you would like to share about the book or your business, or before I get to some fun questions about just general kind of fun questions?
just here's the book,
Oh,
and
good.
it's available. You can go to my website, that's below here, pattysmithcoaching.com, and it'll take you right to an Amazon link if you want to get the book. I think it's a good place to start because, I throughout the book I give stories of some of my own stories of other people who have inspired me, but they're some of the stories are stories of getting through some pretty tough stuff and persevering, and I think it's a way to connect with just this whole idea of what we're talking about, and knowing that, we're all human. We all have gifts. We all have tough stuff. And I just really want people to, when they finish the book, I really want them just to have a new perspective of really wanting to lean into their life and again, approach it from what if, and really ignite that part of them, and not worry about what the outside is telling them, but to just
Mm,
follow what's in here.
that's great. That's great. So, just to before we wrap up, just some really fun things, questions that I think. If Do you have a funny story about your family growing up that you would like to share with us, which kind of really rings a bell to you?
Trying to think of a funny story. I mean, it's just crazy growing up in a big family. I'll say that. Um, my I remember my dad and mom, because there were 10 years between the oldest and the youngest, and so my mom and dad, my dad did, we lived like, I always thought we had a fine life, but I mean, it was really pretty barren for the early years, when my mom was home taking care of the kids. But my parents really wanted us to go on this big vacation before the older ones got too old and they're working, and the younger one was,
Mm-hmm.
so we decided to go. My parents decided to go to California. So um, the neighbors thought my dad and mom were crazy because my dad saved up and took a month off of work,
Oh
and we
wow.
loaded up a station wagon with 8 people, pulling this little trailer that, you kind of crank up the tent, driving across country with 8 people. And everyone was telling my parents that we're nuts. And yet we had so much fun as a family. And you know what my mom's perspective was, which I just so love this. She said, you know what? They're like, isn't that going to be work? And she said, look, it's a lot of work to have a big family anyway. I'd rather work and see the country than just work and just see the 4 walls in this house. And we just had we had a lot of good times. And like, we had the car breakdown in the middle of the desert. I mean, there were crazy stories, but when you have a big family, there's going to be a lot of them. But I mean, it was, that story just hits me because it was a trip that we all loved. And we took some other trips, smaller ones, but that one was pretty amazing. And it was literally an adventure.
Oh wow, isn't that fun? Yeah, and that must have been quite a journey, especially in those days when you didn't have all the electronic gadgets that you kind of have now. You have to just go with it.
You know what my
So,
mom did?
uh-huh.
She knew that, there was different age groups and all that. It was like comic books were big. So she'd buy comic books, and during part of like the later part of the day when we're driving, she would hand them out, and then everybody would switch them off, and that like took up an hour or two. Like we ate in the car like for lunch and all that. So we had jobs like you pull out the sandwiches, you make this. My mom kind of had us working. And in my book, I talk about this, about how I think mothers are CEOs of their family, because it's like running a small company. And it was fascinating to watch how my mom navigated that.
I like that. I never thought of that as moms being the CEOs of the household, right? That is great. I got to remember that. That's really good. I can't imagine how your mom did it. In our family, we are 6'2", and there's 13 years different
Wow.
between the two, between my oldest and me. But I don't remember us traveling with everybody together at that when we were that young. It all was in the later years. So your mom and dad were really brave to do that.
I think some of it was probably they didn't know what they didn't know, but they, again, they let their curiosity lead them more than there's always going to be stuff. But again, when you lead, they wanted to travel and they wanted to try to
Yeah.
do it with their family. So
Isn't it weird that of all the stories that of your life, it's the ones with this traveler, because those are memories that can never be taken away, right? I always say, you can give a gift to a child, they play with it for a few years, and then after this, they're not going to remember who gave you or what it is. But if you give them travel memories, years and years later, like they will definitely remember that.
that's a good point, because if you think about what's travel is about experiencing things.
It is.
It's not like a short-lived thing. Like, this is
Mhm.
great, I got this new whatever, but it's the experience, the feelings, the memories. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I can imagine how your journey must have been. We took our kids, I think, from California up the West Coast to Vancouver and Victoria, those
Oh,
areas.
beautiful.
That itself, it was like, are we there yet? With two
Yeah.
of them, I can't imagine with six of you in the car.
Oh my gosh, that is like so classic. Are we there yet? Yes, that was a question that was always coming up.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I know you've traveled a lot, but if there was one place, it can be anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, if one place that you would like to travel to, where would it be and why?
Um, you know, there's a couple that pop up to me. I would love to go to Southern Italy because I've been
Mm,
to Italy, but I'd love to go to Southern Italy. I'd love to go to Spain, and I'd love to go to Greece.
yeah, all beautiful places. Yeah.
They're on my vision board.
And it's going to happen sometime, right? It will. You got your
Yes,
intention there.
yes, I'll let you know so you can help me plan it.
Oh, I love that. Life is a journey. Life is a journey that you travel through life, right? So it's not just about experiences outside, but it's your experiences of yourself when you travel through life. And you've got such inspiring stories and inspiring messages to bring out for years to come to everybody you meet, Patty.
Well, you know what? When you just said what you said, Shantha,
Uh-huh.
sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Uh-huh.
Let me just, when you said what you said about, oh, hang on a second. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
That's life, right?
Mhm.
About life is just a journey, just in general. I think because, we're always trying to make things perfect, or we're trying to solve problems, but, life is really it's about the adversity. And so I think
Mhm.
it's about the lens that you put on with it. Not that it's fun when you're dealing with something that's challenging, or even if something that's sad or very traumatic or heartbreaking or hurt, but there's always, it's like, how are you going to approach it? Like, what's the learning? What can I take and then release the other stuff? And really, I have a chapter about it's called Letting Go to Move Forward. And it is so true. When you just release the things that literally are toxic or just negative and not serving you, take the learning, even if there's just one nugget, and it could be just, I won't make that decision again, or I'll be careful to put myself in that kind of environment, but to not let it just take you down. Because I will tell you this, I've watched people, and disease is all part of hanging on to that toxicity. And life is meant to be lived and experienced, good, bad, the ugly. But it's so important. My last chapter is about the vision-driven lens versus a condition-driven lens, because I think that is, you change the lens of how you see things, and you come from gratitude, and just the possibility of what's next. And the world's your oyster.
Yeah, it is. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Patti, for joining us. Everybody, follow Patti on all social media. She's on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, Patti.
Yes, and it's Patti Smith Coaching is my social. And then my website's pattismithcoaching.com. And if you want to pick up a book, that's a easy place to do it.
Yeah, check out Patti at pattismith.com. You can go ahead and buy her book. You can see always, what she's up to in her life. And really, go and take the book and see, ignite what's next in your life. Don't be stagnant, and you'll never know what'll open up for you from after reading Patti's book. So,
and Shantha, I'll correct you, because you said pattismith.com, and it's pattismithcoaching.com. And I'll just say this. When I first released my book, it got mixed up with the rock singer Patti Smith. And people were saying, I don't think this is the same Patti Smith. I don't think she's a personal development coach. So.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction. Yes, everyone. It's www.pattismithcoaching.com. Again, you can see it scrolling down there. It's pattismithcoaching.com. Go buy her book. It's an awesome book, and you'll walk away with some really great golden nuggets. And get to know Patti. Follow her on social media and get to know her.
Yes, I would love to connect with anybody that is curious about helping them evolve their and ignite their what's next evolution.
Awesome. Such a great topic and such a great book. So thank you, Patti, for joining us. We'll connect again sometime in the future and see what this book has led you to and where you are in your journey, and get some inspiring life journey stories from you again.
Thank you, Shantha, and thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity. Take care and ignite your what's next.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining. And just a quick exit out here, and follow us on Instagram and on Facebook as well, on YouTube on Inspiring Life Journeys. But thanks for joining, and we'll see you all on the next show.